taxes more than, more than anybody, I promise you. I hate taxes. I hate IRS. I hate anything to do with taxes. But this is something that we do need to sacrifice for. That, you really need to think about it. You need to look into information and get the facts straight before you start just shooting it down and saying, no, we're not going to vote for that because that's an increase. Well, everybody around us, like I said, is higher than us. Everybody's taxes are higher. I promise. If you move out of this community, and I've had people tell me, if this doesn't pass, I'm gone. Good people, they're gone. And I promise you, you're going to start seeing it more and more if this doesn't pass. It's just going to get worse from here, guys. So we need to get it passed, and maybe we will. So I appreciate y'all's time. Yeah.
Here and your support. I'm Mike Howard. I'm superintendent. If you don't know me by now, I don't know how else to introduce myself, but I want to go through this PowerPoint very quickly tonight. This PowerPoint is on our county website. So if you go to county website under tax campaign info, it'll have this on here, but also has Moody's on there. It'll have all the school districts when we have uploaded all the PowerPoints, so you can see what everybody's going after, not just what's happening in Odinville and Martin. So I'm gonna ask Miss Kelly to drive for me on these things, so I'll be a little bit behind. All right, so let's talk about the tax and the attendance zone. So when this tax passed last November, everybody remembers we had the tax. It was called the district option. There was no money involved. We showed that, no money involved. What it did was it set up the attendance zone to match the taxing district. For this new amendment was anywhere between 1 and 20 mills. That's the only thing it set up is this right here. So the attendance zone is on our county website, and you can go and find out where your house is and what zone you're in. Tonight we're talking about the Odinville and the Margaret Odinville school districts. And so if you're here and you live in those districts, your tax is based only on that, and the money that is generated from this amendment only goes to those schools. So the money that you raise does not go to Ragland, Asheville, Moody, or Springville. And their money that they raise does not come to Odinville. The amendment was very clear. It can supplement, not supplant, which means it can supplement monies that are currently being used in each zone. It cannot take the place of it. And so I can't take your money and give it to somebody else, and I can't take their money to give it to you. So that's clearly established in this So available local funds, as you can see, and Derek alluded to this, we are ranked 130th out of 138 in funding, which means there's 8 school systems worse than St. Clair County in school funding. Let that sink in a little bit. There's only 8 that's lower than us. And this list is available on the state website, and you can see everybody in their ranking order. We're below Lowndes County. Lowndes County is funded higher than we are. Currently in our school system, we have 13.5 mills devoted to schools. Let me give you a comparison. Number 1 ranked in the state is Mountain Brook. They give 99 mills to their schools. 99 mills. Now I ain't saying let's go 99 because their tax is really high, but we're 13.5. Do you know that the state requires every school district to have 10 mills? So really we are required of our 13.5 to have 10. So we only fund 3.5 over what the state mandates we have. That's pretty bad. And I'm gonna be very honest tonight with everybody, because I think everybody wants to be spoken to honestly and transparent, because we're here because we're at a crossroads. If we don't do something, this 130 will be lower. And right now it looks like we have money because of ESSER. And if you don't know what ESSER is, it's the federal COVID monies. And they provided that for schools. We just got our last batch of money and it dries up in 3 years. And that money is earmarked for certain things. So you can't just spend it on whatever you want to. You can't build buildings with it. You can't do all this other stuff. It's educational and COVID related. That is it. So yeah, it looks like we got money, but we don't. It's all earmarked already. It takes our school system $6 million per month to run it. And that's to pay the lights, the buses, the personnel, everything that you see costs $6 million a month. We are required by law to have 1 month reserve, which means we have to have $6 million in the bank at all times. And if I hit below one month, I and Miss Nance, who's my CSFO, have to go to the State Department of Education and tell them who we are firing to get below or get back above 1 month reserve. Right now, we have 1.8 in reserve. So we're not even a full month over the minimum requirement. When I stepped in, we had 1.01. We were less than a week over. So things have gotten better, and you think, well, 0.8, that's not a lot. John can tell you that's a lot. 0.8 is a lot of money that you save in 3 years. That's where we are right now in the money side of things. So what is a meal? A meal is basically 1/10 of 1 cent, and it's based on fair market value or current use assessment, and I will talk about both tonight, so I'm not gonna go a lot of detail on this slide. All right, so let's talk about fair market, and I'm sorry this, but it is on the website so you can look. Let's talk about fair market value versus current use assessment. I have 2 real world examples in this community that I wanna share tonight, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, and the one thing that I don't want you to do is get your information from Facebook. Please, ask the principals, ask the assistant principals, ask me, ask central office, ask whoever you can that knows the truth. Don't get it from secondhand information off of Facebook, because you can't believe everything you read on Facebook, I promise you.
Ask the revenue.
Yes, yes, ask, yeah. And if you want to know how it affects you, call the Revenue Commission. Commissioner Crow will tell you how much is going to go up, because he gave me these numbers. So fair market value is based if you own a home, like in a subdivision, Brookhaven, wherever it may be, Hunter Crossing, you name it, your house is assessed on fair market value. And so if you take 12 meals and you apply it to a $100,000 home, you're gonna add $120 more per year. $200,000 home, $240 per year. Add 120 for every 100,000. So a house in Brookhaven that is valued at $320,000 under fair market value would increase $384 more per year, which is $32 a month. That's how much more money this person is gonna have to pay than what they don't pay right now. Let's talk about current use assessment. If you're a farmer, or you own livestock, or you own timber, you know what current use assessment is. It's a discount on your fair market value, comes off the top, because it's not your residential home. It is assessed at a much different rate, and it's pennies on the dollar compared to fair market value. Now, I can't sit here and give you, say, $100,000 is gonna be this, because you have to call the Revenue Commission for this, because everybody's assessed a little bit differently based on what you're doing. But I have a real world example. One of your people in Odenville owns 118 acres here in farmland. This is real. I called Commissioner Crow last week. They own 118 acres in Odenville, all used for farmland. 12 mills is going to increase their property taxes by $83.18 per year. That's $1.40 per acre. That's current use assessment. If you have farmland and not doing current use assessment, you might want to make a phone call first thing in the morning at 8 o'clock, because you're overpaying, okay? That's the difference between the two. But I can't give farmers a specific chart to go by, because it doesn't work that way. If you own farmland and it is under current use, you need to call Commissioner Crow's office and find out what 12 mills is going to do to affect you in Odenville or Martin. If you live in Springville, it's 15. If you live in Moody, it's 15. If you live in Asheville, it's 5. And if you live in Ragland, it's 5, because that's the millage increase that each area is asking for. You need to find out the truth of how much it's going to affect you. Yes, everybody's is going to go up, and nobody wants more taxes. I don't either. I wouldn't be standing in front of you if I had another solution. But the issue is, I can't build an $8 million stadium, a $6 million addition to Margaret, a $5 million lunchroom, and another $3 million in upgrades to this school, the intermediate school, and the middle school without help. I told you we had 0.8 over in the bank. That's not $40 million that Odenville needs. That's not the $40 million that Moody needs to build a new high school. That's not the $35 million that Springville needs to build another middle school. And when you put it all together, that's not the $187 million that we need for capital improvements countywide. That's where we are, folks. We need help. You know, we always heard the adage, it takes a community to raise a child. It's true. It takes a community to raise taxes too. But this is the first time you can decide only what impacts your schools and your kids in those schools. So what does 12 meals, if you want to break it down, if you have a $240,000 home, basically it's an oatmeal cream pie a day, 65 cents a day. So if you're Nick Saban and you love oatmeal cream pies, it costs you one per day on a $240,000 house under fair market value. We tried to make it as easy as we could to show people the true impact it would have on you. Go ahead. So property taxes around us, Derek alluded this as well. If you go back to and see, Trussville has 43 millage toward education. We have 13.5. Trussville, right next door. Jefferson County's 32 for schools. We're at 13.5. Leeds, 31. Calhoun, 24. Talladega, 21. Pale City's with us because they're in our county. That's the millage around us. And you want to know why we're losing teachers to surrounding counties? Because they can pay more. Their millage is higher. That's the bottom line. They have better facilities. Why do athletes go to Trussville? Have you seen their stadium? You seen their new high school? Why do they go to Hoover? You seen their facilities? I mean, it is what it is, folks. And if you've played and traveled with our football teams on a Friday night, and you played against Mortimer Jordan, or Corner, or any of those other teams and see their stadium, then you come back to ours. Hey, I love our stadium. It is natural. It is the way it's supposed to be. It's always been that way. But our kids nowadays want more. They want AstroTurf. They want the graphics. They want field houses. They want a 5A type atmosphere. You know our stadium is built for a 3A school, right? And even though I redesigned it, I had to eliminate seats from the visitor side to give enough seats on the home side. Because if I added one seat, I would have had to add 52 bathrooms. Federal law. There's a formula. How many bathrooms per spectator? That's the stark reality. I couldn't put $8 million in the stadium down there when we were wanting to build a new stadium up there. Didn't make sense. So what does 12 mil generate? I'm gonna get a little closer because my eyes are not as good. The value of 1 meal in Odenville, and I'm talking about the 4 schools in Odenville. If you live in Odenville, you do not feed to Margaret, you only feed to Odenville. The value of 1 meal is $58,000 a year. We're doing 12, so the value of 12 meals is $707,000 a year. Now you're asking, well, 707, how's that gonna build an $8 million football stadium and a $3, $4, $5 million lunchroom and all this other stuff? It allows us to take that $707,000 and go to the bond market and borrow against it for 30 years, like you do on your house. But we get to do it in a lot bigger scale. Now I can't borrow 100% of that 707. I've got to have some money in reserve in case something happens. So they only let me borrow a certain amount. But the money that's left over accumulates every single year. That doesn't have to be put toward the bond payment. So this is where it gets real fun. Let's say you had $100,000 left over and the other $600 went toward your payment. The other $100,000, Coach Wright can come to the community and say, hey, we really need new uniforms and helmets, badly. Y'all got $100,000. Guess what you can do? Cut a check and roll. Good job. Doesn't have to fundraise for it. It's already there. It's already fundraised for it. We passed the tax. Say the band needs new uniforms. Stroke a check. PTO needs supplies to be able to give all our teachers. Cut a check. You have money left over to do things that you can't borrow against. That's a good thing to have. And the questions that come up in these community meetings, why can't we just add teachers? We don't need a new stadium. We don't need a new school. We don't need this. We want new teachers. I told you got $700,000 in the bank. One teacher with salary, benefits, and everything that comes with it is $100,000. You can have 7 teachers. 7 teachers go a long way. You got 5 schools because Margaret's in here. So you got 1 teacher per school basically that you can add. Because you know the state funds us teachers on a matrix. How many students you have is how you get how many teachers you have. We get the bare minimum of what the state requires. Anything above that comes out of local funding. And again, we only have 0.8 over. All that money goes to any extra teachers. So that's where all this can go. So yeah, can you sit here and say, you know what, we don't really want a stadium, we want to hire new teachers. You only get 7, and you have to do it every year. If not, you got to fire them all. that gets a little uncomfortable very quickly. And once they get tenure, you're locked in. You can't borrow now. So that's why you use this for capital improvements, because I can take that $700,000 and I can go for Odenville and borrow hopefully around $12 million. And now that $12 million affects these 4 schools here. Well, what about Margaret? Margaret's in a unique, fun situation. They require 2 communities to vote for them, because we have Margaret feeding Odenville and we have Margaret feeding Springville. They've got to have the support of both communities in order to get a wing added on to Margaret, get a new road cut in from Saney all the way back door to the Margaret School on the other side. Yes, I'm putting a new exit for anybody who's over there. We're trying to add another bus line to cut down some congestion, but we need some help with that. So Margaret, with their money that they can generate from both, can generate about $8 million total from both. That's from your help and Springville's help, $8 million. That will give them a wing, give them some additional stuff, outdoor classroom space, and a new road out to Saney. So that's the value of what we're looking at for 30 years. These are some renderings, as you've seen put out there of, now these are renderings, these are concepts, these are not real. We're not gonna put aqua and all this other stuff in the intermediate lunchroom. I know we've talked about that before. These are just concept drawings, but it just shows, and the area that we're looking to put it is in the grassy area outside the backside of the school and the gym. There's a big open area right there. That's where the lunchroom is going to go. We're going to tie it into those buildings so we have covered areas and everything else going into the lunchroom area. So for the high school, you see the overview, and that's at the bottom left of where the stadium would go, the baseball field. And here's the other thing that I'm going to try to get in there as well. I'm really working with the architects. Is we're going to try to turf the softball field the same time we build the baseball field and turf it, and the football field and turf. So all the facilities at the high school will all be turfed. So there will be no more rainouts at Odenville. So that's what we'd like to do. But turf's expensive, by the way, if y'all don't know. A football turf field costs about $850,000 just for the turf. So it's expensive. More concepts of the upper left. Classroom additions to Margaret, sorry, it's on the website, it's a little harder to see. So, but on the side, if you know the overall view of Margaret, there's wings here, all the way down in the front of the school is here. We're gonna add another wing, but if you haven't been to Margaret, there's a huge embankment right there right now. So there's a lot of dirt that's gotta be moved. So we'll have to move a lot of dirt before we can get it down low enough to where we can add the addition. So that's why that right there is gonna be about $6 million. All right, so how can we ensure that the money that you raise stays in Odenville? One, you voted on the constitutional amendment. It's against the law to not use it the way the amendment says. So it's illegal for us to use money in any other way other than what it says. If Odenville votes and passes it through, it has to be used for Odenville, no ifs, ands, or buts. We've already created 5 accounts within our Board of Education, one for each of the attendance taxing districts. And the money will be able to be seen going in and going out of that account. And what I've requested from every community is one community member, and it could be you, Mr. Brash, if you'd like, or anybody else, be the representative for the community and come to every regularly scheduled board meeting that we do financial reports and get a copy of how much money is coming in, coming out for that account. I don't want to ask my employees to do it, nor do I want to ask the board members to do it. I want a community representative to do that, to be able to meet like this and tell you how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. We're going to be open and transparent. All of our records are online. We are required by law to put them there. So everything you see is online under the financial documents and in the finance department in the website. It's required to be there. So that's how we'll show you transparency and make sure it's all here. And then these are some things you can look at, but I'm not going to go through these because I want to leave time for questions. That just talks about potential projects in every school zone, but you know the big ones. So let's go. What you got? I'm ready. I've got my board attorney here, Mr. Ray. He can answer any legal questions for you and how to sue people. I'm just kidding. No, he's here to answer any questions related to the tax or whatever that I can't answer. Mayor?
So, generate $700,000 a year, $600,000 towards debt obligation. The additional $100,000, I'm using round numbers.
Yes, please, yes.
That's a board decision on what that $100,000, the entire board would go.
That's a community decision.
Community decision.
Yes, it'll be like this, and what I would recommend doing, this is just me talking out loud, spitballing, because we haven't made it there yet. Once we hit November 17th and we're celebrating in the streets, Then we're going to decide, okay, who's the community representatives at that point of who gets to decide about this extra money and all that. And that's where the community will have to come together. And just remember, you got too many chiefs, not enough workers, then you got too many ideas and nothing gets done. So you just got to keep a small group that represents everybody. And Margaret's got to be a part of that, because Margaret's going to have two representatives, one to represent the Odenville feeder and one to represent the Springville feeder side. But y'all will be able to do that. And basically what I want is y'all come to me and say, hey, we really want to buy new band uniforms. And here's our thing where we signed and we petitioned, this is what we want, and we have agreement with the committee board, and here you go. And then I'll submit it for a PO, cut the PO, and we'll just handle it like we would any other purchase in the community. But we're not going to use any of that money until y'all decide on it, other than us paying the debt payment of the millions of dollars that we're about to borrow. I know I'm a good presenter, but I don't think I answered all the questions.
Howard, so if the taxes pass, and taxes are typically paid in arrears for October for the property, so when would this be, if it passes,
Yes.
Is it 2023?
No, great question, great question. So this is why we're having a special election next month. Could we have waited till November of next year? Yes, and put it on a regular schedule and not have to spend any money for it? Absolutely. But as you said, taxes are done in arrears. They're assessed in February and you pay them out in October. Anybody just got their new assessment? I did. All right. So if we get this done, which we will, the vote done before February, it will be assessed this time and we get the money next year so we can start moving on projects immediately. And my plan is, now when do we break ground? Well, you got to go to bond market and you got to buy, and they got to know how much money you're going to generate before they know how much money they're going to loan you. So once we know all of that, we have a little bit of seed money already set aside for Odenville and set aside for Margaret. And that was basically off of debt consolidation and reconfiguring our stuff. And so we've gotten some money there that we've set aside for each community to get projects rolling once the tax passes. I want to move on turf fields quickly because I can do that fast. Breaking ground on the school requires the bond to go through and us to have that money. I can't do anything with that until we get to that point. So I have been told a school will take about 2 years to build in perfect condition. Now, you might as well say 2.5 years. A stadium can be built, only the stadium, the field, the track, and all that stuff, in about 6 to 8 months. Okay? You start doing field houses, bathrooms, concession stands, and all that, now you're increasing that time. A lot of it will be on top of each other, we'll be able to do it. But the amenities and stuff may take a little bit more time. And so if I've got to bring in some temporary bathroom trailers so we can roll on a Friday night, I'm gonna make it happen. If we got to bring in concession stand trailers and sell food out of concession stand trailers, we're gonna make it happen. The goal is to try to play next year. That's a lofty goal, and I'm impatient, and so I'm having to work with architects. They realize I want to go fast on this stuff, and so everybody keeps telling me I need to slow down. But I'm excited, y'all. I want to stick a golden shovel in the ground the next day. I mean, let's go. But it's going to take a little time for the cafeteria to be built. Obviously, you're looking 2 years of that. The addition to Margaret, probably 2 years on that. But the good thing about Margaret seed money is I can go ahead and start putting out there to get a bid to remove that hill immediately. Let's go ahead and get that done. Let's go ahead and start paving the road from Saney to Margaret immediately and get those things done. And that way, when we go to bond market, when we buy the bond, we're ready to start laying the foundation for the wing, for the cafeteria, and for all these other projects.
Yeah, I know all these capital improvements are important, but is there any of the money that could go to like technical schools or training kids for higher paying jobs?
Well, all right, so the money can be used for anything that the community decides. So that extra money that you have can go to anything we need it to go to. But let's talk about Eden Career Center. My son goes to Eden Career, and I'm sure some people in the room may have went to Eden Career. It's a great program. Eden Career is located in Asheville, but it's not Asheville's burden to bear because all of our students go to Eden Career. So the county board, we're going to worry about and take care of that. We're already have, we've given ECTC some seed money as well, and we're about to build a culinary building and move it from Moody to Eden Career so that all of our students can go use it, because right now Ragland and Asheville can't really use that because they'd had to go all the way to Moody. By the time they get there, they get an hour of instruction and have to go all the way back to school, and that's not fair to them. But if I can put it up there with the other career tech courses, now we've got something to go. The State Department of Education is working on a JAG program, which is Jobs for Alabama Graduates. And so we've partnered with the state of Alabama to increase our job performance and our job offerings. So we're working through those things with the state, but there's some grant money that'll come there that's not gonna have to be coming out of this money at all. And so I'm gonna be creative and do all that we can do to provide the educational opportunities for our students without having to worry about the tax at all. I want the tax vote to only worry about capital outlays. Help us do that. That way we can now, instead of me having to put new roofs on buildings or anything that's already upgraded and we're good, now I can put that money toward the educational supplies and materials and supplemental stuff that we need for our kids. Yes, sir. Anybody? Good. You want anything you would like to add, Mr.
I would just tell the folks that, just so you know, this is amendment number 972 to the Alabama Constitution. And just, people are concerned about how the money's going to be used. And I'll just read from the amendment for you. The proceeds of any school district tax levied under this amendment shall be used for the exclusive benefit of the school attendance and tax district in which the school district tax is levied. That means if it passes in Odenville, it must be used in Odenville, period. Also, the proceeds of any school district tax levied under this amendment shall not supplant or reduce any other funds distributed for the benefit of the County Board of Education or any school district. That means that if Odenville has been receiving money from the County Board of Education, as it has, Odenville cannot be punished for taxing itself at a higher rate. So you get to collect and keep all the additional money that you raise through the new tax, and the county board can't say, well, Odenville passed the tax, they have plenty of money, now let's take the money we would otherwise give to Odenville and send somewhere else. They can't do it. It's against the law. And so I just want to make sure everybody understands. It is a really unique, it's the first time that we've had this opportunity in St. Clair County for each community to fund and improve itself, irrespective of the views of others across the county. So this is truly an Odenville decision, and that's why I really like the signs, because it is a vote for Odenville. It is an Odenville decision, and you will benefit from the tax if it passes, and no one else will.
And I'll say on this too, is the amendment allows from between 1 and 20 meals. And how we came to 12, and some of you were in that first meeting, was basically we said, what do you want? But let's don't talk about how many millage yet, because we don't know what that is. What do you want to build in Odenville for the schools? That's where we settled on the lunchroom, Margaret Addition, the field, new football stadium, and aesthetic upgrades and everything else. Well, I went back, did all the numbers, did everything I had to do. 12 meals is what you're gonna have to have. That was like bare minimum. Squeak by, that's what we get. Now that was before the market changed where we are today, so we'll see what the bond market is when we get there. You know, but the thing is, if you ask for 12 and it passed, you still have 8 meals out there that if you decide in the 5 years from now, the community says, you know what, we want to build a new statue in the front yard at St. Clair County High School of Mr. Howard, or Coach Taylor, there we go, that's even better. Yeah. So let's say that the community come up and say, we really want this project done. You have 8 meals that you can go back and do this same process and allow the people of Odenville and the Margaret Odenville area vote. And you can increase it up to another 8 meals at any point that you want to. But it takes a collective thing, just like it did the first time it petitioned the board, who petitions the county commission, and we go through the election process and everything else. You just can't add it, you gotta vote for it. So there are some opportunities out there, and let's say it doesn't pass. God forbid it doesn't pass. We're gonna be sitting here on November 17th, and we're gonna be upset, obviously. I'm a resident of Odenville and Margaret. I'm gonna be upset. My kids will never benefit from anything that we're building, not one. They won't. My wife and I will vote, and we would vote 100 times over if they would allow us, because I know what it's going to do for our community. I know what it's going to do for our property. I know what it's going to do for the future of this school system. But let's say it doesn't pass. Then we can come back to the table find out what went wrong, and try to come back next year or in 2 years from now and put it on the general election. There will be no more special elections for this. It'll be on the general election, and we just find out over the next year, can we put it on the next November one? And we'll just be a year behind. Moody and Springville, I'm just gonna be honest with you, they're gonna pass it. I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. And theirs is 15 mills. They're asking more than what you're asking. And they're wanting to build schools. But there's a lot of positivity coming out of there. And I believe it's going to pass, I really do. I think it will pass here, but we cannot be complacent. We've got to do this, and we've got to get the right information out there. We cannot assume it's gonna pass and not do our due diligence. This is a tax campaign. I've been campaigning for this for 2 years now, for the district option and now for the tax itself. This is a long, arduous process, and it's gonna take us all to pass it. There are gonna be people, you're not gonna change their mind. They're gonna be no, there's probably no votes in the room right now. And that's okay, because we all have the freedom to go into that booth and decide if we want to vote for or we want to vote against. That's your verbiage, for and against, not yes or no. But what we have to do with the no voters is don't let them be so aggressively against it that it puts out bad information. If they want to be against it, fine. But we just asking people not be aggressively against it because we're talking about our kids and what they're going to benefit from it. So you're not going to change people's minds. You just hope to soften the blow a little bit and make sure that they're fully informed. And that's why we're trying to hit this thing, and we have been very open about it because we want people to be informed. You can vote for it or vote against it, but know the right information. And if you're still against it, that's your God-given right. But at least you know the truth, and you know the financial strain that we're in as a county, and you know what we're going to try to do if it does pass. So that's where we are with it. And I can only hope and pray that you really look at the information that we've provided tonight, that you go back and look online at these PowerPoints, and then you call the Revenue Commission and ask how much it's going to affect you. Don't assume that I'm right, because I'm wrong a lot, my wife tells me. Don't assume anybody is right. Find out the information for yourself and do the research for yourself. Know that when you walk in there and you have to vote and bubble in for or against, that you know you're making the decision that you feel is best for yourself and for the schools. That's all we ask. Jim?
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm feeling it by nature. So, when you say 12 mil,
Yes, ma'am.
so is that the estimate of the fair market value and the current use assessment for all the property and houses in Odenville and Margaret?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And that's, it fluctuates. I don't know the new numbers because they're just now, pushing through everything. And so I hope that number goes up because, houses are selling a lot more than what the last time we ran. So it could be, instead of 707, it could be $800,000 now, which only helps us when we go to the bond market because we got more money to spend. And so instead of borrowing 12, we might be able to borrow 14, which makes things a little bit easier and allows us to do more with it.
Right. And so the accountability of it, just say if it passes, and is that gonna be, the responsibility of the county to take up and, push through to the school system?
Yes, the county commission and the revenue commission, they collect all taxes. And then they give us the appropriation that we have from the amendment and everything else that we already get. And so they send that to the school board, and then we have to send our portion to Pell City of what they get and all this. So we have to cut a check to Pell City every year, and then whatever's left over is ours that goes in account. And we give that financial statement every month to show how much actually comes in from ad valorem each month, sales tax, all those things that the county gives us every month, basically.
Okay.
But none of the 12 mills.
Yeah,
go
12
to Pell
mills, yeah.
City. Right, like
Sorry?
that's a different, there
Yeah.
are different taxes collected.
Yeah,
And some
yeah.
portion gets shared with Pell City, but to be very clear.
Yeah, that part of it.
None of the 12
Yeah.
mills that you vote on would go to anybody other than Oak.
Yes.
Right,
And-
yeah, I
and
understand that.
the county, although they're by law required to collect it, they don't get to decide how it's spent, they just send it to the Board of Education.
I just wondered who was gonna be responsible.
Right. Yes, the county commission collects the taxes.
Okay, next question. If it does pass, all these, additions, capital improvements, are they gonna have to all be bidded out?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, everything has to be bid and it's open to bid market. And anyone who meets qualifications to bid to do so, everything has to have an architect as well that's been approved by the state, and all plans have to be submitted to the state for final approval before we can start any project. Anything that encloses a student, either on the sides or the top, has to be submitted to the state. Including the stadium, that has to be submitted as well. So that's why it took so long to redo the stadium the first time, because we had to go through the state, and it took a long time to get all that stuff in. So, okay, anybody else?
I'm probably the person here that likes to talk the most.
I don't know. I'd rival you.
I'm hard for energy. I'm just weighing the room, the way in the audience, and I see a handful of people here fact finding, but I see a majority of the people here that support it because I know you from the community. All I'm going to say is historically on a special election, this area has a low turnout. So if you're for it, then encourage people to come out and vote. If you're against it, don't complain when you have less than what your neighbor has.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that because half the time when there's these special elections, everybody I know had no idea that they have no idea that they're going on. I don't know if there's some kind of better way to advertise and let everybody do, people work so much, some people work in Birmingham, they get home late, they don't see the sign.
Right. And, I've already done one call out and about the tax, and I said, vote for it. I mean, we're very open and honest about it, but I am limited of who's in our call out system. And because I don't have everybody's number in Odenville and everything else. And so as we get closer to November 16th, there'll be other events and things that we'll be hosting, and we got to talk to our principals here for help. Like Moody, they had Oktoberfest. So they had a booth at Oktoberfest where they promoted the tax and talked to people all day long about it. And so anything that we can do community-wise or whatever, where we can get the word out, that's where, in this type of stuff, if you have ideas of how to do it, please let us know. Because the principals here are looking for anything they can to get the word out to the community, because we want every single person informed, because the voter turnout is extremely low in special elections. In the Odenville zone apart. Right, well, see, and that's what we're gonna do. We at the last football game, we had signs out, we had a booth out there answering any questions that people had about it. And we're gonna continue to do that, I'm sure, at the football games. And because that's a way to get in touch with a lot of people at one time, is during those events. But of course, not everybody comes to those as well, and so we still need people like yourselves talking to your neighbors who might not know anything about it, and let them know the truth and where to find the information out.
The other thing I would say, Mike, is we also comply completely with the legal requirements for the election. And the law requires you to publish in the newspaper for an entire month before the election. And we've posted notices of the election in 6 different spots all across the Odenville district. And so we want to inform the voters of the election. And that's really one of the reasons for this meeting, is also it's not just a pep rally for it,
right,
but to also be available to answer any questions for those that are against it. So, but it is a challenge nowadays, and that we have more ways to connect one another, and yet we seem so disconnected. It's a challenge.
Well, the last special election tax vote that had the 4 millage on it years ago that failed in the Odenville and Margaret, there was fewer than 1,400 people showed up to vote in the Margaret Odenville community. 1,400 people. And this past one, this last November, we had a little more. Excuse me. We had a little bit more show up to do it, but it was still a very, very low turnout based on how many residents we have in those 2 communities. So, but like the mayor said, and this is what I said early on, what I do to my house shouldn't affect what you do at your house, or vice versa. But I can't complain if she makes improvements to her house across the street and I don't do anything mine, and her house sells more than mine did. I can't complain, because I had the opportunity to do something about it and I didn't. And I'm afraid that's where we could be in some areas, because we know that there's gonna be at least 2. And this has come up, and I forgot to say it a while ago. We're the 2nd county to do this type of system. The first one is Talladega County. Everybody thinks that Honda built Lincoln High School. No, Honda did not build Lincoln. This vote here built Lincoln. This vote here built Winterboro. This vote here built Childersburg High School's football stadium. They did the same thing. We borrowed their ideas to put this together to have a chance to be able to do something for our community like Talladega. So if you want to see the impact it has immediately, look at that Talladega system. And that will show you exactly, because they're about 6 years ahead of us, 8 years ahead of us in this tax vote. And that's what we're trying to do as well. But you'll see that most school systems will start going to this because it just makes more sense to allow each community to decide its own fate.
Will this go on just the residential property taxes, or will it go on land tracts as well? You have multiple land tracts.
It goes on anything that's ad valorem. So land, timber, farm, yes, it all, and ad valorem also affects car tags, I think, or something like that as well. So anything that's ad valorem located, it will be. And that's why I encourage you to call the revenue to make sure to see how much it actually will affect you.
You got a question?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. I actually live in 12 Oaks right here in Springfield, but we're zoned for Oakville.
Yes, ma'am.
Will we still vote in the same special election?
Yes, you will, and it will be Otis, wherever your attendance zone is. And so if you're zoned for Odenville, that's where you vote. It doesn't matter what city technically you live in, it's all based on the attendance zone. So 12 Oaks is Odenville attendance zone, so you'll vote in the Odenville election. I'm sure that your 12 Oaks probably votes at the courthouse, correct? I think. Anybody know?
It's probably Friendship, it's Peaceful Meadows.
Okay, maybe Friendship then. You just need to find out for exactly where your polling location. I will say this too, wherever you voted last November is where you're voting for this one. So don't get confused. It's the same voting site. So wherever you voted for the presidential race last November, it's the same place you'll vote for this election.
Your 12 Oaks is in Oakville city limits, you vote at Oakville City Hall. You have a Springville zip code, and if we got into a discussion on multiple zip codes in this county, it would take.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
We actually have a fall extravaganza coming up on Halloween, actually. How do we get someone out to put a booth there, to kind of talk to the neighbors?
I mean,
Yep. There you go. Sounds like it's gonna happen, so they'll do it. And that's a great, and again, hey, any booths at trick or treat stuff, and or you know, you can do a vote for Odenville trunk and give out candy. I mean, whatever you got to do to get the message out there. You'll see a lot of folks that night. Now they probably may not all be from Odenville, but you'll still see a lot of folks. And put little business cards in there. Vote for Odenville. Here's the website to get more info and all this other stuff. I mean, the one thing that I love about this is even though each community is doing their own thing, the principals are coming together to share information on how to campaign for this. The PowerPoint that you see tonight was spearheaded by Dr. Walters at Moody High School. He's the one who kind of started the process of doing that stuff. I mean, they took up the reins to build the signs. I mean, this has been a community sharing event, and there's been pamphlets and things like that we're all stealing from each other because we want the same information out there. The millage may be different, but the information is the same. And so that's why we're all working together. So that's why we're pushing it so hard as a whole school system, even though everybody's a little bit different in what they're asking for. Well, I'll stick around, and I know the principals will stick around because you might have individual questions about how each of their schools will be impacted above and beyond what I'm saying. I just appreciate you here. I really do. Even though you might be against it or for it or whatever it may be, I'm still glad you're here because you care enough about your school system to hear the information that's being presented to you. And that means a lot to me because there's so much bad information out there on social media. And then we have to fight that every day, not just with kids putting out bad stuff, but adults putting out bad stuff. We just want the truth. And we want everybody to be informed and make a decision that they feel is best for them and for the future of their community. And hopefully, you know, on November 17th, we'll be able to wake up and, you know, feel like a huge weight's been lifted because we've done some really good things for our kids. And at the end of the day, that's what matters most. If I'm gonna leave something behind, I wanna leave something good behind. And so anyway, that's where I am, but thank y'all again. I really appreciate y'all, and I'll stick around for a little while to answer any other questions you might have individually.